Summarizing the last 2 decades of Bulgarian politics, the result of Russia's unchecked influence campaign is that Russia has bred overt and covert advocates of its interests through the whole political spectrum of Bulgaria. Ukraine is currently not a major topic in Bulgaria and won't be one until the end of the year. Russian mouthpieces have been successfully normalizing viewpoints such as supplying weapons to Ukraine would make us involved in the war, or gas is becoming more expensive because we're not getting it from Gazprom anymore.
Hello and welcome to Ukrainian Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euroatlantic Course. My name is Anton Pechenkin, and today we will talk about Bulgaria-Russian relations, threats of war and gas blockade. If you want to know more, please subscribe to our channel to stay tuned, and if you like our work, please support us with your likes and commentaries. We read attentively every one of them. Bulgaria is traditionally considered to be pro-Russian. This stereotype has a very deep historical roots. Bulgaria has the same Orthodox faith as Russia, the same Cyrillic alphabet, and a long story of mutual cultural ties. Another important point is the history of the modern Bulgarian state. In the 19th century, most of the Balkan Peninsula, including Bulgarian lands, were owned by the Turkish Ottoman Empire. Russian Empire, in its turn, was positioning itself as a protector of the Orthodox Slavic nations oppressed by the Turkish Sultan. During several Russian-Ottoman wars, the Russian Tsar's government proclaimed that its aim is to liberate Bulgarians, Serbians and Greeks from Turkish oppression. In 1878, during one of these wars, Russian army occupied almost all Bulgarian ethnic territory, where the Principality of Bulgaria was proclaimed. Later, during the Balkan Wars of 1912-1913, Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece and Montenegro conquered almost all the Ottoman possessions in Europe, and it was made with the significant help from the Russian Empire. Of course, it must be noted that strong pro-Russian attitudes in Bulgaria didn't prevent this country from joining in both the world wars that camp that was fighting against Russia. Both in the First and Second World Wars, Bulgaria was on the side of Germany. In 1944, Bulgaria was occupied by the Soviet Union and got into Moscow's sphere of influence. During the Cold War, Bulgaria was one of the most loyal Soviet allies and was sometimes even called the 16th Soviet Republic, rather than an independent country. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the situation in Bulgaria changed. The country proclaimed its Euroatlantic aspirations and joined NATO in 2004 and the European Union in 2007. However, from time to time, some Bulgarian politicians and even rulers expressed their sympathies to Putin's Russia. The most vivid example is Rumen Radev, incumbent Bulgarian president. He has several times publicly supported Russian annexation of Crimea. He often enjoyed the company of Putin himself, Moscow Patriarch Kirill, and other Russian guests. Of course, he didn't meet them after the beginning of the full-scale invasion to Ukraine, but on February 25, the second day of the ongoing war, Rumen Radev announced he believes in Russian victory in this war and the future defeat of Ukraine. Why is it so, and what is the wider situation in the Bulgarian politics? Explains our today's expert Georgi Antonov, Bulgarian writer and analyst at altanalysis.org.
Propaganda in Bulgaria is disseminated through a layered system of emitters intended for horizontal and vertical coverage of the public. They range from anonymous copywriters for no-name news internet media to long-time journalists appealing to the principle of presenting all viewpoints, and all the way to prominent politicians, including the president, who repeat the Kremlin's talking points. Given how numerous they are and the fact that they are not voicing original stances, it would be more helpful to describe the system structure than to list individual members. Explaining the pervasiveness of Russian propaganda in Bulgaria requires explaining the flow of corruptive influence that Russia directs towards Bulgaria. Resistance to Russian influence, to Russian propaganda, and to local corruption all coalesce into the same political stance. This is why it's impractical for those three to be discussed separately in the Bulgarian context. Since Bulgaria's entry into the EU and NATO became unavoidable and a unifying principle for the whole public, Russia has been aiming to turn Bulgaria into a reverse poster boy for the EU membership. Russian efforts have been directed at staggering and delaying the process of harmonization of Bulgaria's state and armed forces with those of the EU and NATO. Thus, Bulgaria would be turned into a black sheep within these alliances and an example of EU and NATO membership gone bad, which could be paraded internally to the Russian public. Such ambitious goals can only be realized through the recruitment of the local political and administrative elite on a large scale. Summarizing the last 2 decades of Bulgarian politics, the result of Russia's unchecked influence campaign is that Russia has bred overt and covert advocates of its interests through the whole political spectrum of Bulgaria. Speaking of particular tools of hybrid influence, the main tool is the money diverted from regular payments Bulgaria has been making to Gazprom until recently and Lukoil for energy supplies. As a result, a significant portion of the Bulgarian political elite is effectively competing first and foremost to be recognized by Russia as the main representative of Putin's interests at a national level. Being a representative to Bulgarian voters is merely a means to that end. This unity of purpose can cross traditional left-right ideological divides without effort. Therefore, in Bulgaria you can see a center-right party such as GERB, which at a declarative level is for continued integration into the EU and NATO, but in reality has been delaying and sabotaging these processes to the best of its ability. Boyko Borisov didn't stop even at building a Russian gas pipeline which circumvents Ukraine through Bulgaria and an equivalent to Nord Stream, and which had a major role in enabling Putin's attack on Ukraine. The levels of institutional takeover are such that the Bulgarian government cannot fully rely on key institutions such as the Prosecutor General. In these circumstances, the main political divide in Bulgaria is not, as could be imagined, between ideologically or otherwise politically opposed alternatives. Instead, it's a divide between the political elites across numerous political parties on one side, and on the other side we have the part of society which recognizes the government's corrupt policies. The game changer in the Bulgarian playing field is that this part of society has recently found a strong political representation which has amassed a significant amount of voter support. Mass anti-corruption protests in 2020 and the 3 rounds of parliamentary elections that followed in 2021 demonstrated a majority of 2/3 to 3/4 of the voter base ready to back a government on an anti-corruption ticket. Backroom machinations in 2022 and sabotage of the coalition government by a party acting as a plant of the old regime led to a successful vote of no confidence in parliament. Yet the resolve among voters remains unchanged. The outlook is good for a stronger anti-corruption coalition being voted into government in October 2022. Since April, the invasion of Ukraine has been overtaken from the center of Bulgarian public discourse by internal political turbulence.
In the second part of his speech, Georgi Antonov displays the Ukrainian question in Bulgaria, how the Russian invasion to our country influenced Bulgaria itself, and which positions are the most common in the country's political field. Long story short, aid to Ukraine isn't in the focus of the political agenda in Bulgaria. Georgi Antonov uncovers more details.
Ukraine is currently not a major topic in Bulgaria and won't be one until the end of the year. Russian mouthpieces have been successfully normalizing viewpoints such as supplying weapons to Ukraine would make us involved in the war, or gas is becoming more expensive because we're not getting it from Gazprom anymore. For the English-speaking audience, it's important to be understood that official siding with Russia and acting in accordance with Russian agenda has virtually no grassroots support among the population. Its drivers are local politicians who are careful not to advertise their programs and services to the public and disguise them behind a populist rhetoric about national interest. The populist message is then ideologically flavored according to the part of the voter base which is being targeted. The information battle is going strong in Bulgaria, but the outlook is optimistic. The war in Ukraine has forced many players on the political playing field to show their true colors and given pause to commentators who habitually portray Russia in a positive light. The public is gradually waking up to the connection between Russian influence, local corruption, and low living standards. The coming election campaign and autumn season will provide the battlefield for narratives revolving around energy security and whether Russia can be relied on, both on energy and in general.
You have been watching this special project by the Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euroatlantic Course dedicated to the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukraine in Flames. In description there is also information how personally you can help Ukraine in our struggle against the Russian occupation of our country, and if you find our job interesting and useful, don't hesitate to like and share this video. Thank you for watching, and everything will gonna be Ukraine.